This is the first print of a new project that's helped me overcome something every photographer faces. That feeling of being stuck or uninspired, not knowing what to shoot. We've all been there, but I found a project to break through that creative jigsaw puzzle. So how many of you have a bit of time on your hands and you want to get out and take pictures, but you've got no idea of what or where? I can imagine most of you watching this. And when it comes, it can be a real challenge. And that's the dreaded photographer's block. Some of us put our cameras away for a couple of weeks and let it pass, and others try and fight it. Last week I had my rangefinder camera loaded and it was a bright sunny day, but I had no clue where to go. Why don't I walk around the local town looking up at some of the interesting architecture and take photographs, taking advantage of the bright sun. Now this sounds boring, right? But let's throw some challenges into the mix. My first challenge was lack of option. The sun would dictate which buildings I photographed. My second challenge was tonality. If I'm going to be shooting buildings in the bright sun, something has to give. So I decided to meter for the highlights and push the film for a harder contrast. As long as I had good highlights, then whatever tonality is left can follow. So it's like I've stopped at this building here. You see those lines going across, the telephone lines. I've got a 50mm lens on, it's nicely lit, a white building as well. And then just to add a little bit of depth, I also bought this street lamp in as well, just a pole about there, something like that, make sure the building is straight. I don't know, but there's no birds flying around. It would have been nice if there was some sort of life in the sky. My third challenge was time. The sun in the sky at high point was no good. I wanted low sun so it hit the buildings more face on. A challenge because that left me with only a couple of hours of sunlight shooting time, and most of the time is spent walking and waiting for a bird. Which brings me round to my fourth challenge, which was trying to get some life into the scenes. And the only life available would be birds. There was going to be a lot of waiting. So I'm just setting up my darkroom. I'm going to be making some prints. I'll show you these prints in a little bit of darkroom session a little later on. These are the negatives here that I'm going to be choosing to make a print of. But yeah, this is, you know, this sort of project, this sort of photography is not unnew to me. I've done this quite a lot. Walked around the streets searching for shadows, looking for compositions, looking for angles and stuff like that. But I've never really sort of pursued on it as a project as such. And it was only when I was sitting indoors, I wanted to go out and take some pictures. And I thought, what can I take pictures of? And then it just suddenly occurred to me, why don't I stick to, or start a project and stick to it? And I think this will be quite a nice project to pursue. And of course, I can come in the darkroom, make prints, or I can make a photo book later on down the line, who knows? But like I say, it's nothing new to me, and I know it's nothing new to you guys, but just throwing a little bit into the mix, such as making sure that there's bright sun, maybe shooting a certain film or a certain camera or a certain lens, or maybe pushing or pulling a film, whatever you want to do technically, or do the whole lot, you know, all together. But I think it's fun because I can explore different areas with this project in mind. And, you know, be it where I live on the Isle of Wight or on the mainland or wherever I go, I could think, okay, I can get a few more shots for the project. One of the downsides to it, I suppose, is when you're in your own area, everything kind of not looks the same, but you feel like you've done it already, you know, and you've seen it so many times, it becomes uninteresting. But when you venture to other areas or other towns that maybe you haven't been to before, and you look up, it's then you think to yourself, wow, that's really nice, that's really different. You get a picture and you start enjoying it. So I'll carry on with the video. I'm going to be setting up a darkroom, and we'll come back to this in a moment. I think one good thing about coming out in the morning is all the birds are hungry. Maybe late in the afternoon they're not so hungry. I can hear loads of seagulls up this way, near the sun. Now, after plotting up and finding a building with the sun hitting it just right, I got comfortable and waited for the birds. After a while, this became uncomfortable, and so I ended up taking a photograph and just moving on. I had a roll of 36 shots to get through. So I waited for a little bit and a seagull went past, but the trouble is with these rangefinders and other SLRs where you have to look through the camera, I'm looking up like this, and after a few minutes it starts to ache your neck. So that's where I think a waist level finder like the Yashica that I'm going to be using in a moment is probably best for this sort of thing. Just gives you a bit more patience, I suppose, rather than sitting there like this for God knows how long waiting for a bird. I did think that a tripod would be better, but some areas wouldn't be suitable as I'm out in public and it's not going to leave much space on the pavement for them people to pass. If I was going to continue to do this, I needed to shoot on a waist level camera. This time I loaded a Yashica TLR and I headed back onto the streets chasing the sun. This time I used a light meter to meter the highlights on the buildings. I knew that would return middle grey, so all I needed to do was to overexpose from the meter reading by a couple of stops to nail the highlights. And the Yashica was much more comfortable and I could wait longer in position than I could with the rangefinder. Now, this is a project that can be going on in any town at any time, as long as it's low sunlight, such as mornings or afternoons. But I think afternoon is best as the sun is going down. It's like having a timer. And because I rely on the sun casting over the buildings, it will be interesting to see which streets and alleys it forces me to walk through. Could this project end those days where I want to take photographs but don't know what or where? Well, yes. Only on those sunny days though. Could I get bored of this project? Well, quite possibly, but that depends on what the end goal is. If I wanted to release a photo book of my project showing 25 of my best photographs, then it only ends when I feel that I've got the most interesting photographs for it, and that could take a long while. So if this is something that I find myself nurturing and looking after, then my photo block on sunny days should diminish. Should I use the same camera and the same film for my project? Well, not necessarily. If I did use different cameras and different film stocks just to change things around a bit, it could make it more enjoyable. But what about those windy days or rainy days or cloudy days? Maybe I can find a project to work on those in the future, who knows? One of the things that I do have to think about is if I do want to make a book. I mean, if you look online, you can there's so many different types of books you can buy for your projects. Whatever you want to do with it, there's so much out there for you to choose from. Years ago there was nowhere near as many of these options. You had to go to printers and it was quite expensive. These days to make a zine or a book isn't really that expensive to do, and it's a nice way to have your work printed as well and kept. I've got a book from years ago on all my digital stuff. It's nice to be able to keep that as a memory of your work in the yesteryears, you know. But one thing I do think to myself is I'm always printing in the darkroom. Now, if I do make a book, do I scan the actual prints that I make? Or do I just scan the negatives and put those in a book? That's one thing I've always thought about. And then thinking about it even more, if it doesn't matter if I put either a scan of the neg or a print of the neg inside a book, it's both the same photograph. And even prints, you might think to yourself, well, maybe a print would be better because that's the actual work that you did in the darkroom. But every print you make is individual. You know, I could make 10 prints in here today and they'll all be very much the same. I can come back in a couple of weeks' time, put the negative on the enlarger, do the same again, and they'll all be a little tiny bit different in their own way. So I think probably I would just be best off scanning and using the digital files to go inside a project book in the future. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments, because you know, what I think is not what everyone else thinks. But one thing I do like about making prints is having that hard copy. There's nothing like having a hard copy of anything. Obviously we got the negs, which are hard copies, but having an actual positive of the negatives on paper on a print, to me, is like the final part of of photography, and any of you guys out there that haven't got dark rooms, try and get your work printed if you can, scanned or printed. It's nice to have a collection of your prints that you can look at rather than looking at on a tablet or a phone on a screen or whatever. It's nice to have that hard copy and prints for you to look at and also show to people as well. So I'm going to be printing on Kentmere VC Select. This is 9.5 by 12 inch paper. I'm not sure if I'm going to print the 35mm ones, to be honest with you. I'll have to have a quick look. So I've chosen a negative that I really do like, and I waited ages for it, which was those pigeons coming off of Queen Victoria's monument. So I'm going to make a print of that and see how it comes out. Now the only trouble is with these sort of prints, when you've got sky in, is it's so susceptible to any dust or marks that's on the neg. So I have to try and make sure the negative is as clean as possible. If it's trapped inside the emulsion itself, I will still use the negative as long as it ain't too bad. It's just a part of film, you know. Obviously you can't help dust sometimes that gets inside the emulsion on film. It doesn't often happen, but if it does, then it's just part of the negative and part of the process, I suppose, of handmade photographs. But I've just got to make sure that the negative is as clean as possible before it goes under the enlarger. I can use this little loop to see if there's anything on there. It looks clean, but you never know. And it goes into the enlarger, ready to make a print. And with the negative sleeves themselves, I've already marked a note. I've called it the project looking up, the date, the film I used, the camera I used, and also the area that I was in as well. Once I've chosen a negative I want to print, and if that's the one that's going to end up being part of the project, you know, that one negative out of a bunch that's really worth printing, I'll take that negative and I'll separate it from these sleeves and put it elsewhere, but then mark on here where it is and then index it the other side. That way I can go to this little tiny box and I've got all my negatives there that have been worthy of making prints with. And then one of the other questions you might want to ask yourself is, should you crop a negative or should you leave it full scale? Some people say you should leave the whole negative in. It shows the composition on the time what you shot, but that Yashica, you know, it's not exactly bang on 100% viewfinder in there for your composition, so I don't mind cropping. And with this photograph of Queen Victoria looking at these birds, there is a tree on the right hand side. I don't want that in, so I'm going to crop that, and that's exactly what my image is going to be. That's what I envisioned. Might not have been what I got on camera, but it's certainly what I envisioned in the darkroom. So I don't mind cropping. Some people cry about it, but I certainly don't. It is what I want it to be. It's my photograph. So I just made my first test strip on that negative, and this is the test strip here. So increments, this is f-stop increments I'm doing. My base time was 10 seconds, and then this was with less exposure. Increments 3 there, 7, 5 and 3.5 seconds, and that was a bit more exposure, 14, 20 and 28. So I'm going to go ahead with 10 seconds and see how it looks. 10 seconds, what I'm going to do is put one whole test strip down onto the easel like so, going diagonally across. And I'll do half of it for 10 seconds and the other half at 14 seconds. So we'll just cover up the paper like so. So that's going to get 10 seconds there. That will show me what the sky and a little bit of the building is going to look like. And then what I'll do for 14 seconds is cover that part and let the other side of the paper go for 14 seconds like so. So in effect, I've got 2 further test strips on one piece of paper there. And someone asked me the other day in the comments if I could do a video on a small darkroom in a bathroom. And I've got over 400 videos, guys, on this channel, all about film photography. Quite a bit of it is darkroom stuff as well. And I've got a playlist called Darkroom. And if you go on there, there is a video where I used the Intrepid enlarger a few years ago now in a small confined space, which was my darkroom. So if you're interested in that. And there's that split test that I've done there, 14.1 seconds, 10 seconds. I've got a feeling that's too dark and that's a little bit too light. So I'm going to go in between, and I'm going to go at 12 seconds on a full print and see what it looks like. Hopefully there's no problems with the neg and I'll get away with it. I just realised I was using a 10x8 paper easel at the start. I've had to transfer over to bigger easel because I'm using bigger paper. Okay, anyway, let's put a piece of paper under there and see how this first print comes out. I'm not expecting great results for this one. If I'm lucky, I won't get any marks or imperfections on the negative. So I'm just going to put a whole piece of paper under there and see how that comes out. and paper these days ain't cheap, so, but we'll see. Okay, so we said 12 seconds. And in it goes. Hopefully this will come out all right. This is Kentmere VC Select Fine Lustre paper. I usually use gloss, but I got a bit of a deal on the Lustre paper, so I went with that. And gloss sometimes is hard to show you guys on video because the lights are just beaming all over the place on the gloss paper. So it's a little bit easier to show on video. And at the moment, fingers crossed, this is coming out looking rather nice. We'll keep it going for a little bit longer, about a minute in there, and then we'll stop and fix and see how it looks. Okay, there it is. It looks nice. We'll get it dry and have a look at it. So it's came out really nice, lovely tones and a nice dark sky. We've just got some really nice clarity going on that picture, but there's just a few dust spots that I need to really get off. I don't mind one or two little tiny ones, it doesn't matter, but when they stick out like a sore thumb, one here above the pigeon. Not only that, I've got a little bit of the branches coming into the frame. I didn't want that, so I've had to crop in a little bit more, clean the negative and see if I can make this any better. So I like this photograph of one of the pubs, this really old building. So, and I've got a little tiny bird going past as well. Nice dark sky, quite contrasty. And I use the contrast 0 filter for this print, just to build up these highlights. But over that contrast 0 filter, I use this small dodge tool just to give the bird a bit more detail in the photograph. Otherwise he would have got dark. So I knew what was going to happen. I'd end up haloing him, so it was up to me to try and make the halo look a little bit decent. So I used the dodge tool, just pulled it back, and as I went along like this, all throughout that 5.6 seconds, trying to stop the wire from showing. If I left it there, that wire would have shown. So I had to move the wire all the way across by trying to keep this over the bird at the same time. And it's come out looking really nice. Some people like these halos, some people don't mind them, some people can't stand them. To me, I don't mind. It just shows you've done a little bit of handwork on the print. And sometimes it's done for show and other times it's done by mistake. This time I've done it for show and I think it looks all right there. And then for 2.5 seconds, I use a contrast 5 filter to burn out the blacks. And then another 2.5 seconds on the contrast 5 just down this area here to make the windows a little bit darker. And I did try this print before, but I didn't like the halo that I did. So I just had to make it a little bit bigger. So that was quite a lengthy darkroom session making these prints. There's the one there with the birds, which I really do like. And if I am to make a book of this project, this one is definitely going to be in there. In fact, all these three are, because they're the first 3 prints that I made from, what, 4 rolls of film, 2 medium format and 2 35mm. So that's definitely the first one that's going to go in there. Guys, these ones are going to be on my Etsy page if anyone wants to order a print of these. I've only done one, so there's only going to be one on there. If you want to jump on there and you want to support the channel, get one of these prints, these 3 are going to be on there. And this one as well with the halo, the last one we just saw being made, I quite liked the way that came out. Almost looks like a bit of a sun going on behind the bird. And like I said, whether you like these halos or not, some people do them for creative reasons, other people do it just to cover up maybe mistakes. I've done a little bit of both, but I think it looks okay and it looks nice. And the other one I did, which was actually from the 35mm, I went over to 35mm in the end, and this is an Old Town Cinema Bingo haul. I can't imagine this is going to be there much longer because, you know, I don't know whether it's listed or what. this building. But that old sign there, in years to come, I don't think that's going to be there. So I've got a photograph of it there. Nice hard hitting contrast. You can see the sun's hitting that wall and trying to get that bingo sign in at the same time. So I got a nice print of that as well. So for the 35mm shots, I used Adox HR50, which is quite a nice sharp film. And if you use the Adox developer as well with that, it makes it even better. But I haven't got none of that stuff, so I just developed it normally and still got nice contrasty prints, even though I pushed that film. And for the medium format in the Yashica, I used Agfa APX, which was expired. I pushed that, but the FP4 that I used, I didn't push. I just wanted to see how it would look not pushed, and they come out looking nice as well. But I think going forward, I'm going to make this more pushing film and try and get more hard hitting contrast out of the prints, just to make them look maybe a little bit harder, I suppose. A little bit of grain would be nice as well. And although I used a waist level viewfinder, I found that more comfortable when I was looking up, you know, waiting for a bird to pass. So I would see a nice building, see the light on it perfectly, and then I would just compose and wait for something to come over, like a seagull or whatever. A flock of birds would have been nice. As I was sitting there like this, as I said in the video, I just started to ache. My neck was aching, my shoulders were starting to ache, and I could have been there for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes waiting. God knows what the people around me must have thought. I know I did get a few strange looks. And you know what? Sometimes I just sort of pulled back a little bit to relax my shoulders and a bird went past. So you just got to keep in position if you're on 35mm. Yeah, I did say about the tripod business, but if you can get away with a tripod, it would be much better. Tripod and a release cable, so you get your composition on your tripod. You know the camera's looking in the right space. Just sit there and wait with the release cable for something to go by. I think it's much nicer when a little, you know, a bird or something does go by in the scene. I just think it kind of fills the whole scene completely. But that's down to individual's taste, I suppose. So let us know in the comments if any of you guys have got a project going on at the moment. Maybe you're thinking about putting it into a book for whatever reason. Let us know in the comments. Put a link in the comments as well to your photographs. Let everyone see what you're up to, what your work's been doing. I'm sure myself and others would be interested to see. And especially if you are intending to put it into a book or a gallery or whatever, let us know in the comments and it will inspire others. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Look out for this project because I think it's going to be a good one for me when I've got those days when I haven't got much else to do and I do see the sun. I think, you know what, I'm going to go out and carry on with that project. It might take me a good part of a year to complete. I don't know. A lot of these photographers, you see their books in the shops, they've taken a lifetime to get those 50 or so photographs in that book. So it's not something that can be rushed. I just think it's something that can be enjoyable, and in your spare time you just think, if the conditions are right, I'm going to go out and continue with my project, and that is what I'm going to focus on going forward. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks very much for watching. If you did watch to the end, hope you enjoyed the darkroom session, and I'll catch you next time.